Union Township, Isabella County, Michigan.
Trustee Hauk,
Here, Bill Hout, Union Township, Isabella County, Michigan.
and Clerk Cody here, Union Township, Isabella County, Michigan.
All right, we have a pretty light agenda tonight, primarily presentation on the manager's recommended 21 budget. Could I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Do we have support?
Support.
Any discussion? Seeing lots of shaking heads. Clerk Cody, would you do the honors, please?
Clerk Cody, yes. Trustee Hauk,
Yes.
Trustee Brown,
Yes.
Trustee Thering,
Yes.
Trustee Bills,
Yes.
and Supervisor Milky.
Yes. All right, that's approved. Mark, I don't know if you have anything you want to add at this point. I know people will have questions, but if you'd like to introduce anything in particular, feel free to jump in.
Thank you. So we had the budget was presented early in November. I think it was November, at one of our Board of Trustee meetings. That might have been the last meeting of the prior board. We'd invited the new board to attend that meeting and participate, listen to the presentation. And then tonight, we have an opportunity for the board to ask any questions of myself or department heads or staff regarding the budget. I'll remind everybody that the board needs to approve an appropriation resolution by December 31st so we're in good standing at the beginning of the year. I thought what I'd do, if it's all right with everybody, is just to bring up the budget book on the shared screen. It just might help us. So while I'm doing that, Supervisor Melky, I can just turn it back over to you.
Okay. So at this point, I mean, we really have 3 new members that sat through a previous meeting that didn't get a chance to really interject questions, or maybe it was all too new at that point. But I'll be happy to give anybody the floor that
Okay.
has questions.
Can you all see this budget?
Yes.
Thank you.
I raised my hand.
Oh, I can't see hands currently, but so
shoot.
go ahead, Trustee Bills.
I had one question, and I have a feeling I know what the answer is, but on the postage, it seems to be going up 4 times the amount it was in 2019. Is that because of the absentee ballots?
Yes.
Okay, check.
So can I jump in on that, Trustee Bills?
Yes, sir.
So we're not having an election though in 2021,
Oh, wait, yeah.
are we?
Right.
No,
That's another thing, yeah.
not
that-
as of right now. There's always that possibility, though.
Right. I mean, I would expect it in the even years, unless we have something special.
Doctor, can you refer me to where you're seeing this?
It's page number 4 out of 35 in the first section under general. Towards the bottom. Yeah, right there. Mail postage right there.
Alexa, pause.
And that's in accounting. Can you speak to that, Sherry? It might have been how we're changing some of the cost centering.
No, we're not changing anything, but postage does go up every year. So I think there's just some cushion built into that.
That's a lot of.
Yeah.
I'm assuming the big cost mailings are taxes twice a year.
The taxes and the assessment notices. There's postage throughout the budget in
Right.
various departments. If this, and I agree, it looks like it is a little high within the accounting department. I could reduce that sum either, probably at this point. I mean, we'll wait and see what other items we have, but I could just make a note of that for budget amendment number 2. Or I mean, number 1.
Is budget amendment a number 1 something that takes place as the year gets rolling?
Traditionally, it's mid-year.
Okay.
June, July timeframe.
Okay. Yeah.
I cannot currently
Okay, I've
see
got my hand
hands.
up, Brian. I had my hand up, Brian.
Okay, go ahead, Trustee Howe.
I've got a couple of questions. Okay, we have 35,000 budgeted
There
to,
we go.
we have 35,000 budgeted for Jonathan Lane for the house that we bought, the lot that we bought. Last time we talked about that, we thought that house might sell. Did that house sell? I know Rodney was checking on that. Somebody was interested in buying that.
What page is that, Bill?
Well, it's just on the general, it's on the,
Yeah, it's just before general.
right, it's, the list of, I didn't write the page down.
Second page of the book.
Kind of in the notes section.
Gotcha.
Yeah, the note part, yeah.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Whatever happened with that? Are we selling that house or what's going on?
We're still working on that process right now.
Okay, so if we sell the house, what's the 35,000 gonna be for, to fence it or to, what are we doing with the 35,000?
Well, the 35,000 does include the cost to
Remove the home.
demolish and remove it. It also includes the cost to do the basic perimeter fencing around the lot.
Okay, so if the house sells, it's not gonna cost as much to demolish.
That is correct. And in that case, we
Right.
would amend the budget as part of that budget amendment number 1.
All right. Another question I have is, this is on sidewalks. And I know you had sent an email out today, Mark, explaining the sidewalks. On the north and south side of Remus Road, I've had a couple of calls from people that, well, one was like, a guy that, I guess I don't need to bring names up. He wants to know if the township now, if we're gonna fund that, he got a notice that he has to have sidewalk put in, and then he has to have like handicap ramps put at the curbs and stuff. Now, does he not have to worry about that anymore?
I have spoken with the gentleman you're talking about,
Okay.
and that is also in process. He has made a request to the planning commission to be put back on the list for temporary relief from the sidewalk construction. And
Okay.
so
Hasn't he had 2 years notice on that already?
he has.
Yeah, I think that's ridiculous. He should be forced to do that. That's relief that was revoked.
He has a challenge that he is required by the Michigan Department of Transportation to do offsite improvements as part of his construction because he's on a corner lot. And in fact, there are 2 property owners there that have the same problem, that they would be required to do work that's not on their property to meet the MDOT requirements. And so that's part of the reason he's asking for some relief, and that the costs have come in far higher than any anticipated amount would be for doing the work only on his property.
Those
this
two are the ones that talked to me.
Is this the Bradley Remus?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there was some difficulties in that site. I remember when that site plan came before the planning commission.
Well, this is west of there though.
It is both properties, actually. The one that the supervisor is talking about, and the one, Bill, that you're talking about.
Okay.
Both properties have made the same request.
Okay. My next question, this might go to Kim. We're gonna get a new vac truck. The old vac truck is, well, the old one is on, the old vac is on a trailer. Are we gonna sell that?
No, we don't have any plans to sell that, Bill. We'll hold on to it until it's in a condition we
I
can't
just-
use it.
Okay, because the county's interested in, if we're interested in selling it, the county road commission.
We have quite a few cross-country sewer lines that run in easements, and it's much easier to get that trailer-mounted vac
Right.
into those areas. So we're gonna hold on to it until it comes to a point where it's no longer feasible to repair it.
Okay. The only other thing I have is like in the general stuff underwater, under new capital projects. I don't know if this is a big deal or not. It's just a typo. It says $275 to install service, the high-speed service pumps. Should that be 275,000?
Yeah, it should.
I just
I can,
wanted to, in case somebody says something, well, little things like that, you never know what people will say. So that's all I have. Thank you.
I'll update that.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Can I follow up on some of the sidewalk stuff that you brought up, Bill?
Yeah,
Mark had sent out an email, a list of sidewalks originally planned for 2020,
yeah, I saw that.
but rescheduled for completion. The Bluegrass and the Broomfield, those corridors have been a high priority for, in fact, I think money was originally approved way back in 2011 or 2012. And a lot of the difficulty was easements, which is addressed in this email, as well as, not all the property owners were willing to give easement because they didn't
Yeah.
want to have to foot some of the bill. The township at that time went through an incentive process of trying to cover a percentage of the construction of those sidewalks under the reasoning that it's a safety issue, right? So we basically tried to create a district in particular in Bluegrass that we felt the traffic there was high enough and we had to get people off that road or someone's going to get killed, that we could justify it. Some of the fears in doing that at the time had to do with setting precedent. And I think you kind of spoke to that, Bill, that, hey, when the township says these are priority areas, how much liability is the township willing to take on versus what's required by our ordinance, which is the property owners to pay for that. And so my question is kind of general. Have we identified any kind of justification areas that, so we're not setting precedent when we look at like Bluegrass or Broomfield, that somebody over on Remus doesn't say, hey, how come you're paying for it there? I don't want to have to pay for it.
I'd like to speak too, whenever.
Sure, jump in, Connie.
Sure. So what I think we should do is put it on the agenda item and maybe maybe bring up a motion that where we've already taken our maximum easement, that we would allow the township to fully pay for and maintain sidewalks if the owner allowed us.
Are you speaking just in certain districts?
No, I'm just talking about in general, because if we've already used up our entire easement, we should be paying for the entire sidewalk and maintenance, in my opinion, because we already used up our easement. That's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, some of the difficulty we had in the past, like in Bluegrass, is when they developed Encore Drive and the Bluegrass corridor is, easements weren't taken at that time when they should have been. And so we got stuck in the spot where we didn't have easement to even construct sidewalks. I'm not comfortable that everywhere sidewalk should go, that the township should pick that up. I mean, that would crash our budget. But I'm open to I mean, I'm all for sidewalks. There are areas like Isabella that would be nice too. We just don't have the budget for it. So I just didn't know what the strategy was. And maybe this isn't the place, but you know, we're budgeting for some of this, and that's why I'm asking this.
So if I may, I can speak to some of this a little bit. What I've been able to ascertain over the last several years is a couple things. One, the township, at least up till now, and maybe it'll continue, has made sidewalks a real priority. And, you know, that's been true, I think, it's probably been true a long time, but as long as I've been here, since 2016 or so, it has gotten a lot of priority, a lot of talk. We've been budgeting money towards it. And it's been my sense that the priority has reached a point where, particularly as it pertains to filling in some of these gaps, say on bluegrass, that if you want anything done, the township's going to have to spend the money to do it. You know, you've tried the incentives to get easements. You've tried to get easements and to make people pay 50%, 100%, and you know that's not worked. And if the priority is high enough, then that translates to me into willing to spend some money to fill in particularly these gaps. And that's where a lot of the emphasis is on, particularly on bluegrass, filling in gaps. Some of the gaps may be longer than others, but it's trying to get that area completed. There are other areas of sidewalk activity where the board has taken action to revoke waivers that have existed. And so we've, you know, begun outreach to those folks, telling them it's time to put in their sidewalks. They're all going to come back with one reason or another to either the planning commission or the board of trustees to seek additional waivers. And I think Mr. Manning was speaking to that a few minutes ago. And there's a process, I believe, that was put in place as part of the revoking the waiver action where they can do that. And I think that's what they're doing. They're going back to the planning commission asking for additional waiver. And, you know, each of the situations is going to be unique, but you're going to have an opportunity to decide how much of a priority really is the sidewalk. And some of that will come in the form of spending township money. Some of it will come in the form of making property owners spend their money to do what they said they were going to do when they first had a site plan approved, but asked for a waiver and were granted one. And then there's other areas of the township where the funding source is a little different. And I'm thinking primarily of the West DDA. You have non-general fund money. You have money that's being captured from all the taxing units to maintain and, in fact, increase property values within the district. So it seems to make sense strategically to use those monies to put in sidewalks. And you know, every situation is going to be a little different, a little nuanced. And so that's kind of how we're approaching sidewalks. Recommending general fund money for high priority gap infill, recommending EDA funds to use where they can, recommending that the Board of Trustees not grant additional waivers. And over time, I think you'll find success in getting more and more sidewalks put in. It's important to note that trying to build out sidewalk infrastructure throughout the township is a generational long activity.
I would agree with everything you said, Mark. I mean, I don't want to come off like sidewalks aren't a priority to me. I just know the difficulty we've had in the past, which you spoke to. A lot of failure in trying to fill in bluegrass despite the different strategies that were used. I guess my biggest concern, I'm going to try to articulate this again, is if we are able to fill those gaps in bluegrass, that's a big win. I mean, there's no question that's a safety issue. But how do we protect everyone that's getting a waiver claimed or revoked, or new construction going, well, why should I pay for sidewalks? The township paid for them on bluegrass. And I know in the past, part of the discussion was creating like a safety district so that there's a logic behind the fact of why townships deciding to fund it here and not in other places. Are we able to justify that that, hey, we're going to do bluegrass because of safety, but over here on Lincoln, you got to put them in as part of the zoning code. Does that make sense? The difference?
Well, it makes sense to me, but how many, is it everywhere? Is it the whole ring road where we would have that problem? Or how many places is that we've used up our easement?
Well, it's in a lot of the township. Because the road commission, traditionally in the past, the road commission would put the roads in or maintain the roads, and they never got easement for what we needed. And that changed back in about 13 or 14, because we were having such difficulty in bluegrass. We told the manager then, that was just prior to Mark coming on, look, whenever we're dealing with the road commission, we don't sign off on this stuff. We need them to make sure that they're getting this easement, so this isn't a problem going forward.
Oh.
But there's a lot of history behind us not having easement in many of these roads.
And there's a lot of history of site plans approved without sidewalks. And so, I understand and I agree that you end up caught in a bind. And, at some point, I think you talk about the precedent and treatment over here versus there. Well, some of the treatment occurred, 15 years ago. And it's 15 years later and the situation changes. And, at some point, I think, and again, it depends on how quickly the township would want to move. And that's relative because it's all slow. You'll need to kind of get past some of that concern with how somebody was treated 15 years ago versus what we're doing today. Otherwise, I think you'll be caught in this space for a long time.
Yep. I mean, I agree, but I think we should move forward, not just say, that's the way it is. I think we should move forward and do like chunks of it every year or something.
And you are moving forward. There's been, I forget how many miles of sidewalk's been installed, or how many linear feet, however we measure it, in the last several years that we report it out at least annually. So you are making progress and you are budgeting funds
Can I paraphrase this concept just so I make sure that I understand? And a lot of this, because, I wasn't on the previous board, so I'm not that familiar with some of the decisions that were made, but I was, but only for a year. Is the concept that we have the Sidewalk and Pathways Committee essentially helps identify priority areas, and those priority areas are then given priority in the budget so that we can fill in those gaps or whatever it is they identify. But with regards to new construction, where they go in front of the zoning or the planning commission, excuse me, nothing's changing there, right? I mean, if I want to build something on Isabella, I've got to follow the zoning ordinance and put in sidewalks because I'm building there. Is that accurate? If they're not there.
Yeah, you have to, there's new rules.
That's generally accurate. There's still an opportunity. There's criteria that exists now
Right.
to guide the planning commission. It's much more rare for the planning commission to grant any waiver compared to when I started here.
Yeah, it was normal practice for a long time to give the waiver. Okay, so that's not really changed. It's just that we're willing to take on those high priority areas. We'll take on the liability of that. New construction, they still have their liability.
Right.
Or anything that has to come before the planning commission, really, with a site plan approval.
And we're using the input of the sidewalk committee, pathway committee, to inform the budget development, and their criteria does have to do with, and Roddy might be able to speak to this better, but they've developed criteria to prioritize sidewalks, and one of those priorities has been to fill the gaps on Bluegrass, for instance. And if we want to get that done in any semblance of a reasonable time frame, then it's my judgment that's going to take general taxpayer funds to do it. And I think, in my judgment, because it's my recommendation, you don't have to agree with it, is that it makes sense to do it from a variety of perspectives.
Yeah, no, I would agree. It's helpful for me to understand the mind shift from when I was on the board previously. It makes more sense to me now, so I understand it better. So thank you.
I have a question. I don't know if Connie had mentioned it, maintaining. So we pick up section of Bluegrass and we put it in because of the safety aspect of it, and more than just that. It provides safe way to get to where somebody wants to go because it's such a busy road. When you say maintain, what do you mean by maintain?
Well, I think that would mean, if it breaks, somebody's got to fix it. That's what I'm talking about, because that's long-term cost, but that's not going to happen right away.
But if we're essentially going to put a sidewalk in and pay for it, it's going on somebody else's property.
Mm-hmm.
We are saying, you know what, this is such a safety concern. We're just going to go ahead and we're going to do it for the right reasons. Well, we've already saved that property owner tons and tons of money for the right reason. But I would think that maybe it wouldn't be asking too much for them to maintain it.
Well, Mark has been talking to these guys, so he should answer that one.
Okay.
Yeah, you won't find a recommendation coming from me for us to maintain the sidewalks. You'll get in, and when I hear the word maintaining, I start thinking shoveling.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
And, we have a sidewalk ordinance that right now that responsibility rests with the property owner. Same with heaving, that can cause trips and that kind of thing. And, and I don't know exactly how we handle all that legally when we're looking for easements on private property for the public use, but we'd need to get all that built into those documents. And I have never, and I'll acknowledge my experience is somewhat limited, but this is the first area that I've lived in where it wasn't just kind of assumed. And I mean, it was codified, but nobody argued about it, that you'd shovel your own sidewalk that's in front of the house.
Right.
So there are exceptions to that with the East EDA, for example. We actually contract that out, correct?
We do.
But that's because we're using Economic Development Authority money in that case. We're already capturing money for that purpose.
Commercial district and some of those, funding opportunities, those kind of things. I'm thinking more, even residential, but.
That answered my question. I guess I wouldn't be in favor of maintaining. I feel the cost, just saving whomever it is, the cost of having to put it in is greater than the cost of maintaining.
But they don't have to put it in. That's the thing.
Well, but aren't we noticing in certain areas the safety?
The board, and that's the other, I mean, that's what we're trying to avoid, I guess, is the board has all the authority it needs to command through a special assessment process that's not citizen initiated to have these sidewalks put in.
I mean, we're not looking to put sidewalks in out in the middle of nowhere that nobody travels. We're looking at for the greater good, and it serves a purpose greater than a few.
Yes. Well,
Yeah, we're unique in some ways. The city, if you look at it within the city, everywhere you're going to have lots of pedestrians. Whereas in the township, we have everything from urban to rural, right? And so we have agricultural districts, and then we have our business districts, and it is very different types of zones that we're having to deal with.
And the city's had multiple numbers of more years as an urban community to put in sidewalks, to infill sidewalks, to get their sidewalk infrastructure where it is today.
well, for the Bluegrass District, I think that's, for me, I mean, I was on sidewalks and pathways, so I'm biased, but I mean, that's a really important for the student population that walks that road. I just feel like they're not safe. That's all. I just think,
And we're taking advantage of the site plan process, and Rodney will have to help me out, but I think it's Menards or somebody is doing a relatively small amount of work, happens to require a site plan, and we're making them put in a lot of sidewalk.
are they going through with that?
That is the Menards project, and yes, that project is still scheduled to take place. They didn't get it done before winter, but they are still planning on it. We also have a Sam's Club project that is going to bring in additional sidewalks along Encore Boulevard.
Oh, cool.
Well, Mark, I appreciate the discussion. I realize this was kind of a helicopter view of something that's in our budget, but it's helpful for me to better understand what the directions were that you felt you had from the board. And I don't disagree with any of them. I mean, it's helpful to understand. And I agree with Connie. I'll say it again too, that Bluegrass district is critical from a safety perspective. And there's a lot of other reasons to do it. Walkable community. But that was something I actually ran on in 2012, was trying to get sidewalks in there. And we only quarter of the way succeeded.
Well, with the master plan, there's a plan to try to build up that area out in there. So having those sidewalks already in place is just one step closer to that goal being realized.
I actually can see hands now if anybody's got anything else. I will point out, I think all of you heard, I think it was Trustee Worley brought up the issue with the fees, and on the page we have in front of us, there's a few pages actually. I do like the layout a lot better, Rodney. It looks great. But I know his concern was some of the increases that we're seeing. And I think the response on that largely is they've been stagnant for a long time and we're trying to catch up a little bit. That's accurate, correct?
That is correct. We're trying to bring the fees closer in line with the costs. These are all fee for service where a particular property owner or applicant is asking us to do something like a site plan approval, and we're trying to bring the fees in line so that the general fund is not subsidizing those costs.
Thank you. We're kind of quiet.
Hey, man, you brought up the sidewalk issue. That was all I care about.
Clerk Cody.
You know, I asked about, I talked to Jennifer just a little bit about the fees of because she's the one that does the publishing of them, and she's saying, or, told me what cost of each one was as far as publishing them. And, just to publish something one time, it could be $100 or more. Just a small one is $100. So this is definitely, toward that cost, when they get a site plan or whatever, because you have to publish notices in the paper, things like that. And it's really expensive right now.
It is.
Wow. That I didn't know.
Yeah, I think in our last meeting on the budget, I think either the manager or our community economic development director brought up, we've had to do some larger ads and they were upwards of $500,
Yeah.
I think.
Definitely toward publishing, I can tell you that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Trustee Therian, I saw your hand.
Yeah, we're good. Actually, I have two questions, kind of. One, Lisa had mentioned, and Rodney, with the way the world turns today, we have to put it in the paper with all the other avenues that we have to display what we're doing. I mean, I'm not saying that we shouldn't, but I mean, how many people, I don't even get the paper anymore. And so I rely heavily on, whatever comes through the internet in some respects. You understand what I'm getting at.
So there are two things that the newspaper does. And yeah, first of all, yes, we are under state law requirements related to publication of notices. There are two things the newspaper does. Number one, it gets the word out. And it does it, obviously, there's a print edition. The newspaper also has information available digitally on their website. So there are a number of ways to get at it, and quite frankly, the digital edition is very inexpensive, just as a plug for the newspaper to help keep them going. But the other thing, in addition to getting the word out in one form or another, the other thing the newspaper does from a publication perspective is it provides a record that we did actually publish the notice. We put something on our website, it's ephemeral. We can put it up, we can take it down. If we take it down, there is absolutely no record that we ever had it up there. And one of the challenges is if we ever have a problem where somebody says, hey, you didn't really publish that, If it's just on the website, it becomes more of a challenge to prove that we did it. But with the newspaper, there's always a record. For every publication we do, we get an affidavit of publication. And of course, you can actually go to some place, to the library or to the newspaper and actually look at that edition of the paper and see that notice in it, even if it was published a year ago or 2 years ago. So there is that record aspect that comes into play as well. The state laws, every legislative session, there is a bill to amend the state law to eliminate or reduce the newspaper publication requirements. So far, they haven't gone anywhere. There's one right now in the State House that would alter the requirements. We'll see. You know, I certainly welcome more opportunities to publish things on our website, but not everybody has a computer. Even now, not everybody has access. And also, there are challenges related to websites for folks with certain disabilities. That if we're going to use the website for that kind of framework, we have to have a website that can work for somebody that's blind, for example. You know, so all those pieces of the puzzle come into play and get complicated very quickly. Whereas with the newspaper, all that is already essentially set up. So where it will go, I don't know, but every session, there's always a bill that comes through to try and change those rules.
Thank you, Rodney. I actually have one other question. I believe this is for Mark on the budget. Mark, in the general, page 8 of 35, when we're looking at legal and attorney fees, I see under one of the two headings, there's nothing budgeted for 2021. Does that mean that that's been settled or taken care of, or?
So I think
middle.
we're looking right here.
Yes, sir.
Yep. And so, yeah, okay, this requires a little bit of explanation. So we're recommending legal fees, $90,000. The line under that, legal fee assessor, was the line item where we were tracking the amount of money we were spending on legal defense costs for the assessor as it related to the Pung matter. The Board of Trustees has approved, taken action 3 different times. I think it totals up right now to $30,000 in support of those fees. And so we've been paying those fees, and then starting in about July, we stopped getting invoices for those. And so I took that fine to mean that we weren't going to be needing to spend much more money defending the assessor as it relates to the Pung matter. Well, that was wrong. That was a wrong read of the situation. What was really happening was the invoices that would come to us via the assessor, they would first go to the assessor, because that's who's really responsible for them. We're paying, you know, we're reimbursing, if you will, although it's not actually a reimbursement. We're just paying the legal firm. But anyways, we stopped getting those invoices. And I believe it's because that's around the time the assessor stopped working here. And I think what the process was that Clark Hill, who's the law firm, would send their invoices to the assessor at the assessor's township email address. And then she would forward them on to me or Sherry with her comment that, you know, these services did occur and they should be paid. Well, when the assessor stopped working here, I don't know where Clark Hill was sending the invoices. They might have still been sending them to, the assessor's Union Township email address, but that no longer existed. Anyways, we weren't getting invoices. Well, they've kind of figured, we've all figured that out. And we're now sitting on, what's the number, Sherry, approximately?
I can't remember. We just got another $5,000 invoice today for November, so I don't remember.
Yeah, we were just
August,
talking about it
September.
a day ago, a few days ago. It was around $20,000, maybe more, maybe 25. 20 or 25 from July up till October. And then you add in the 5,000 that Sherry just spoke of. So, one, we have a lot of invoices that have not been budgeted for in 20. Two, we exceeded our board authorization back in July by $1,000 or so. So I need to have, I think it's our attorney come, township's attorney, not the assessor's attorney. The township's attorney come, provide the board, one, an update on the Pung matter, generally speaking. And then two, give the board an opportunity to deliberate and decide if they want to keep paying for these costs, and if so, provide for some additional authorization. That won't be occurring at the December meeting, but it will be occurring at the first January meeting. So that's a long answer as to why you don't have anything budgeted in the second line in 21.
Thank you. That's, yeah, I mean, more to follow or more to come, I guess. So
Right.
thank you, Mark.
Yeah.
Trustee Bills?
Well, I was just following along with that notification stuff, and the House bill number is 6440, in case anybody wants to know. Because it would eliminate that, notification in the paper stuff. That's all.
So off topic slightly, Mark. With regards to the Pung matter, quite a few meetings were held. I think I can say this. Let me just make it more general. We have had closed session meetings before with the previous board. Those obviously we can't relay that to the new board members, correct? They need to be, if there's something relevant to before them, they have to be caught up in a closed session versus something that we're able to relay, because we're not supposed to talk about closed session matters outside of the closed session or with individuals even that were there, right?
Well, I think the closed sessions with the Board of Trustees, so, I mean, I could verify that with the attorney, but I would not have any problem forwarding to current board members attorney-client privileged memos that went to the prior Board of Trustees.
Okay, because that might be helpful to catch them up on a couple things.
Right. In the closed session on the Pung matter, we'll only get to the case itself, whether or not the board wants to continue authorizing expenditures for legal defense. That particular piece of the discussion, that's always occurred in open session anyways.
See no hands.
There will be a board action item at the December meeting to approve the appropriation resolution. You'll be getting that agenda later this week. the December meeting is going to be pretty heavy, a lot of agenda items. So we'll try to get this packet out to you, as soon as possible.
Thank you.
And we've had the public hearing on this already, so at this point, it'll just be whether or not to approve a resolution to pass the budget, correct?
Yes, you'll be adopting an appropriation resolution, which by reference approves the fee schedule. It approves the budget at a departmental level. And it also approves the millage, all that's wording within the appropriation resolution. And I believe, I can just check. Yeah, the appropriation resolution, which is on the screen. So it's this paragraph right here. Budget for the various funds per the attached at the department level. Fee schedule. Millage. So that's the document you'll be looking to approve.
Oh, I'm sorry, Trustee Haug?
Yeah, Brian, I was just gonna say something that we might think about before the next meeting. I don't know if we're doing this the next meeting, but at our regular December board meeting, about assignments to like the city commission, the Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribe. We need to start thinking about people for those assignments, don't we?
Yeah, I have had some conversations with some of the trustees and regarding some of their desires, and
All right.
not with everyone. But yeah, that's a good discussion to have, Bill.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe people should be thinking about those things and talking to you, discussing it between us. I mean, vital to get somebody on the 2% request. Norm did a good job with that.
Yes, he did.
We need to keep building those relationships.
I have a good idea there, so we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
And I'll share that with others too. But if we don't have other budget items at this point, see no hands, we'll move on. Sorry, Trustee Haug?
I'll move we adjourn unless you have something else.
Oh, we have to have public comment.
Oh, okay, sorry, I forgot that. Yeah,
By
there it is.
law.
Yeah,
So-
I see it now, forget it.
With that, we'll move to public comment. Public comment is not an opportunity for questions, just comments only. Questions of the board will be not answered at this time. If you have specific concerns or questions, you can call Township Hall at 989-772-4600. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes regarding any issue. And if you come forward, please state your name and address for the record. And with that, we will open up public comment at 6:56 p.m. And we'll give it a minute. You never know, somebody might jump in at the right time here, right? Not seeing any hands though. With that, we'll close public comment at 6:56 p.m. And then final board comment.
I have a hand. Can I just ask one question?
Trustee Bills.
How many animals is a household allowed to have? Does anybody know the answer to that?
I've got 3 kids. I think that's probably the limit with that. I'm not sure.
Four
Dang it.
mammals, or like 4 animals. I forgot the rule for that.
So would I direct the person to Mark if they have a question? Because I got a complaint yesterday.
Yeah, you can direct it to me and I'll see if we have any ordinances on that topic.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank
We did have something in the old zoning
There
code, 'cause I don't
is.
want to speak to the new one because I don't recall, but
Oh, I don't know.
there was limits on like the number of fowl you could have, like chickens and geese, et cetera, et cetera. But so there are limits, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, you can direct them to me. That's fine.
Okay, sounds good.
Any other comments from the board? We'll see you in 2 days, right?
No, it'd be a week.
The 9th.
Yeah, the 9th for the training.
Oh, yeah, right.
All right.
Good.
Anybody care to give a motion to adjourn? I think I heard one already.
I withdraw my motion. Someone else can make it now.
Motion to adjourn. I will speak.
Or
No discussion, I'm assuming. No hands. All in favor, say aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Meeting adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.